When you're staying small, you're not playing the creator's dance in this world. You staying big and expanding and flourishing and expanding joy in the world and being yourself and being that abundant child is the best gift that you could give the creator.
I'm going to do just a brief introduction. I'm really excited to have you here, Ruble. I'll say that for many years, I had the intention that I wanted to kind of expand and to grow not only my capacity as a facilitator and practitioner and influencer in the wider realm of healing intergenerational trauma, but I was interested in kind of taking the seat as a business owner. That I felt like I really had mastered the art of so much of what I do in the world, and it supported people in kind of having that deeper impact, standing in their sovereignty, knowing who they are in terms of their own intuition, in terms of claiming their empathic capacities and their psychic perception, and becoming visible in their mysticism. And yet there's a movement that occurs when you move from healing the shadows of fear around stepping into kind of modern facilitation as an alchemist, a witch, a Merlin, a mystic, empath, a systemic constellations facilitator, a healer, an energy medicine practitioner, a Reiki practitioner, whatever you identify as, a coach. Behind the scenes, you have extraordinary capacity to travel the realms. And as we stand in and we begin to harness that capacity, grow it, learn it, step in and use it, there's another level of awakening that occurs, where you recognize it's not just about your own journey of healing or the journey of those that walk into your space, but you have a potential to create a wider movement, a collective movement, which you see ripple as you start to touch the threads of consciousness in each one of the individual people that you work with. And I reached that point and I found myself feeling incredibly limited in my capacity, not only to access my lineal gifts in terms of becoming a business owner. I had in my own lineage, I had an imprints of bankruptcy. I have immigration in my field, and a lot of persecution, a lot of war trauma, and all of that stood in the place of me being able to stand with like either the perpetrating energies or the energies of victimization that show up when you start thinking about strategy and method and scale and business and all of it. And so I started looking for different business owners, and Dan and I worked, oh my gosh, how many business owners have we worked with? Or business coaches, sorry.
A number
of business coaches. And we're just not that coachable. There's a lot of aspects of us that are not super coachable. Ruble would probably disagree with me in this moment, but I would say we struggled with kind of the typical coaching model of like coaching from a box, like here's how we coach, here's how you scale, here are the ABCs of business growth and development and leadership. And I met Ruble and he proposed his services. He had a conversation with me and he really kind of introduced what we could do together. And I was not ready. There was like no way I could have said yes to what he was offering, because I don't think I saw the capacity in myself to say yes to it. I didn't see myself belonging to anything that he was really offering. And then more growth happened, more constellations happened, more shadows arrived. And every few months he would send me another email and just say, hey, Emily, thinking about you, hope you're well. What's new in your world? Just like very kind and loving and just engaged for, 2 years at least. Just every few months or so, he would reach out. And at some point, the knock, on the email inbox arrived, and I thought, I'm going to stop spinning my wheels in all these different directions, kind of resisting the capacity of what's possible, and begin to think about it. So we had another conversation, and we did a session, or a longer conversation, and I just noticed this like huge movement in Dan's field in that conversation. And what I realized is like he isn't just coaching me or coaching Dan, but he was coaching many of the war heroes and the war victims and the immigrants in Dan's lineage. And I just felt like this whole crowd show up next to us. And they're the same people that facilitated that like closing ceremony with us. They're the same people that showed up, and I don't know if any of you saw his costume, but his hat and his mustache, and the part of him that was like so hardcore about all of you getting on the bus. Like everyone, are you going to get on the bus? Are you going to get here from the airport? Are you going to make it to the workshop? Like that, those are the people in his lineage that facilitated that movement. Like there's no doubt in my mind that all of them wanted to make sure you arrived, you got here. Like we are here together. When we designed the alchemical constellations training, Ruble was not a part of the training. He wasn't in the like design at first. And as soon as I started meeting with you, I realized like, I want you all to get here, whatever here is. Like I wanted the immigration movement to occur, the arrival movement to occur, the healthy transmutation and alchemy of any colonization imprints that are here to have those shift. That strategy comes with ease and flow to you. Strategy in love, in life, in business. Almost all of the work that Ruble and Dan and I have done together is really inner work. It's been a lot of inner work to be able to meet the call of my dharma or my purpose. And yet, there's, I would say 20% of it is conversation around actual like money and strategy, and yet that's the portal in. The portal in is, how do I make more money, or how do I have a greater impact? How do I grow my practice? And then where we go is within, and then we come back without. And it's been just probably the most impactful coaching experience we've had. And I've had to, face a lot of shadows around what comes up. Even yesterday, I was inside of a shadow around, collaboration and how we work with this. So just know it's not a complete journey. And we added him as a bonus to this program because of our desire to have you really at least get a taste of what is offered weekly, and be able to learn both the technology and the technology of business to arrive in your own inner sovereignty around leadership. And should you want to generate a lot of money or flow or currency, whatever currency looks like in your life, that you have his support, should you want it. And it's not of cost to you. So all you have to do is say yes, just like put the X in the box and give it a go, give it a whirl. So I'm hopeful that it's appealing, and that you decide you want to do it. And if you don't, we trust your movement. Ruble actually has an introduction and a bio, but I did want to just talk about why he's here and my hope. Ruble, do you want me to read your bio? Maybe I'll let you talk about your own bio.
That's good. As I'm sharing this thing, I want you to understand where I started, like at the age of 14, as a Catholic in a relatively conservative country. I'm like, I should follow the path of extreme Christianity, and I should contribute to the suffering of Christ. This was my idea. So I was not going to marry. I was going to stay as a sage. So I had this unique thinking, and I'm fasting for 50 days, not like eating one meal a day. Now it became a thing. And thinking way too much, reading Bhagavad Gita, reading Bible, reading different literature from different spiritual practices, and thinking that there is so much meaning in suffering, and then we are here to co-suffer so that we could redeem the world somehow, right? So because there is an element of suffering in the world, and we have to figure out a way to end suffering by us paying for the mistakes of the ancestors or the conditioned mind. Does this make sense so far? How's my British accent so far? Put that in the chat. Is that good? This is the Indian accent, playing as an British accent. Okay. So you follow me so far? Good. Okay. So what I did was I created suffering in my world because I didn't have much suffering, thankfully. So I said, you know what? Let me bring suffering to me, because if the choice of the human is to suffer so that we could redeem, and as a Christian, my purpose in life is to co-redeem the world. Instead of just taking on the regular suffering that comes to me, I should be proactive, right? Okay, so I should be proactive and figure out a way to create more suffering into my life. So I don't eat sugar, I don't eat salt, I don't taste anything anything good. Like I make the food taste bad. Any experiences of life I denied. I don't watch movies, I don't go on cars, I travel only on bicycles at the time. Okay. It's not Zoka, I think. Soka. It's not just the Catholic suffering. I reinvented Catholic suffering to the next level. I am the inventor of the modern suffering. So I lived 500 years ago. So essentially, I was reading the saints, the philosophers, the thinkers from 500 years ago. Essentially, I was living on 1200, 1000 years ago, around 800 years ago. And the lucky thing that happened in my life was the suffering was not induced by another person. It was self-induced suffering. If it was my dad who's asking me, hey, you need to suffer in order to find redemption, then I would be like one of these victims who will come back and say, my gosh, my dad was abusive, he did this thing, and I'm a victim of this thing. In my case, because it was choice, I had no other way to understand that this is a choice. It's a chosen suffering, right? And because it's a chosen suffering, although I had like so many other challenges in my life, I saw that I was like, oh my gosh, this is all choice. The bucket was choice. Does this make sense to you? The bucket was choice. Since the bucket was choice, I was like, okay, what does this mean? So by end of this conversation today, you're going to have a different outlook into suffering, a different outlook into business, and how suffering and business associated. Oh my gosh, we will talk about that. And then how is wealth poverty cycle, like having a different outlook about wealth/poverty, a different outlook about sales and marketing as well. That's what we're going to do today. How does that feel? Good. So for that, one other thing that I realized, that I understood about the human experience itself, is that we are not listening. We are just talking. If you are here to talk, nothing that I say is going to come to you. So you're like, I'm not talking. You're the one who's talking. Yes, I'm the one who's talking, but you're talking in your mind. You are having this thought conversation right now, right? So if you're willing to be open to a different level of thinking, is when these ideas are going to come to you. Otherwise, what you're going to do is you're revalidating whatever you know already. You're like, oh, I know this thing already. I mean, I'm the master. I know. I understood. I ascended the highest level. Now it's clear for me. I don't need to listen. And if you reach that point, then none of the things that I teach is for you. So the 90 minutes, I'm going to tell you why we are a stream of 1.75 billion thoughts. And why we don't listen? Because we are so adapted, so connected, so deep into our own world, our own thinking, that sometimes we are not willing to look the opposite perspective. Sometimes, or most of the time, we don't see truth, even the relative truth. We are in our own deep stories. So why we don't listen? And why we just affirm, like, oh, the business guy. This is a guy who teaches business people. Oh my gosh. I'm sure he's a greedy guy. I'm sure this thing. And I'm sure those business people, those horrible people who, they kill the nature, who do all kind of bad stuff to the world, those kind of people. I'm the spiritual one. Sometimes people think like that too. We just want to affirm what we believe. So I'm not here to help you to affirm what you believe. I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge your mind to look in the world with a different perspective. Because you came with this curiosity, which died inside your school cafeteria when you were 11 years old. So you will be curious again after this conversation. Like I said, you will have a complete new outlook about business, sales, and money. So before I get started, I want to talk about human manufacturing unit. And then I'll tell you what I do, and then we'll get started on that. So what is a human manufacturing unit? Human manufacturing unit is, I believe, every human's generalized purpose. And if you're looking for purpose, this might be your generalized answer too. Every human's generalized purpose is to bring and expand joy in the world. So your purpose as a general human, not as a specific human, is to expand joy in the world. And how do you expand joy in the world? Using a manufacturing process. So if you look at the world, if you look at your body, which I believe was completely sin, then I later on realized that your entire body is a brain. Is that fair to say your entire body is a brain? If your entire body is a brain, what happens is, as you move up in your body towards the front of your body in three elements, front of your body in your front of your brain, in front of your heart, and in front of your gut. These are the three different areas where you have the highest conscious neurons in your body. So essentially, you have some brain around your gut brain, which is proven by a Stanford scientist. And then you have a heart brain, which is here. And then you have a head brain, which is here. So between these three, you are manufacturing joy as a species. You're manufacturing joy as a species. So most of humanity is living in the lower end of our brain, the emotional brain, the brainstem, the memory brain. So we are not human beings. We are human doing. So why are we human doing? Because we are living in the brainstem as a collective. Why are we human habits? Because we are using that human doing to create habits, and we stay in those habits. And then we are becoming human memory. Through the human memory, what is happening is, when I'm touching, these are the areas of the brain that you use to remember. So neocortex, which is part of this brain, and anybody from neurology, it will make more sense to you. So this part of your brain, which is the neocortex, which is a human memory, that human memory is what you are sometimes. So between the human doing and the human habits and human memory, we forgot being human beings. So the beings is joy, and that's how you came to this world with anyway. So my teaching or my work in business, whether I work with those bad people, who make $300,000 to $125 million to grow to the next level. But what I teach, and then we also have a virtual assistant company that help entrepreneurs to cost effectively scale and grow their business, providing the virtual assistants, Facebook marketing, YouTube marketing, and online marketing, and so many things to help them grow to the next level. I work with those supposed bad people, but sometimes, maybe at the end of this conversation, you might have a different look at this thing. Because Ultimately, you're here to expand joy. And if I could teach the person who's doing $300,000 or $125 million to help them to find their inner joy, then the impact is so much bigger than you could possibly imagine. Okay, that's why I do what I do. So, what do you think? Should I teach business people, these bad assholes? Can I use the word asshole here? Is it too technical here? Okay, so bad assholes. Oh my gosh, these guys, they're just greedy. Yeah, of course there are greed in business. Of course there are bad people in business. Of course there are scammers in sales. Of course there are scammers who do marketing. But why don't we breathe fresh air into this new world so joy can be expanded? Okay, so that is the context of what I do. So one of the reasons why poverty exists in the world is because we are agreeing on scarcity. Imagine you went to a funeral. The husband died. So let me read it one more time. One reason for poverty is that we are agreeing on scarcity. We agree that, okay, scarcity is okay. It's like the 4 agreements. It's like the agreement that poverty is okay, it's normal. And in that way, and I'll get to the example in a second, in that way, it is a suffering. You're ready to suffer the lack of money. If you don't have money, if you don't have happiness, if you don't have emotional freedom, one way or another, you're willing to suffer whatever you don't have. The truth that I see is major cultures and communities are born out of shared suffering. Process that for a second. Major cultures and communities are born of shared suffering. Process that for a second. I'm suffering, you're suffering. Let's create a suffering community. Let's suffer together. Let's validate. Let's find meaning for this. Oh my gosh, this is so good. I feel good because my suffering is very redemptive, very redemptive. I found a way to suffer in a very redemptive way. Yeah. So, okay. Can you see this? Can you see what I'm talking about? Yes. So, if that's the case, you might have heard this phrase, maybe from Eckhart Tolle or Tony Robbins or somebody. What you tolerate is what you get. Have you heard about, if you heard about this, say yes. If not, say I haven't heard about it. What you tolerate is what you get. Okay, you have heard about it. Okay, a lot of people have heard about it. If not, you're hearing it right now. This is absolutely wrong. You don't get what you tolerate. Because you don't decide what you tolerate. If you don't decide what you tolerate, who's deciding for you what you tolerate? Who's deciding for you what you are going to tolerate? Tell me, put that in the chat. Who's deciding for you what you're going to tolerate? The people that you associate with most of the time. It's like your neighbor is deciding what car you buy. I'm not in a jealousy, the Joneses, the other side way. Not in that way. See the other way. Your neighbor is literally deciding, hey, you buy this car. You build this house. You stay poor. My neighbor decided. And even, Andrea, the subconscious mind is a collection of your social circle or your collective. So in other words, the people that you are spending time with, whether it is your ancestors or your friends or your parents or the people that you tolerate, what your social circle tolerate. And so if that's the case, who are the people who are going to be in your circle? So please write this down. You tolerate what your social circle tolerate. And what is your social circle? It's your proximity. And how do you define proximity? You define proximity as the people that you spend time, physical space, and emotions with. So what's your proximity? Your proximity decides your standard. What you're going to suffer, what you're going to tolerate, it's going to be decided by them. And who are they? People who you are spending emotional time with, which means you're fighting or loving. You are in physical proximity with. You're in physical proximity. You're spending physical time with them. Or physically time with them. Or you're spending most of the time talking. Because your brain is connecting and syncing with them. syncing with them. So that you could be them and they could be you. And there is so much science around it. And we could talk about it. And I'll take some question too at the end. So in other words, the conclusion point on that is, me and you, we are tolerating poverty in the world. And what you tolerate is what other people get. Write this down. So until now, your Tony Robbins's and other people told you, you tolerate what you tolerate is what you get. What you tolerate is what other people get. If you're tolerating lack of abundance, if I am tolerating lack of abundance as a normal thing, then I'm manifesting poverty for other people around me. If I don't have a higher standard about having the wealth that I deserve and that I want, and this precious life, like I don't know about reincarnation or future life in heaven. I haven't been to both of them. I don't know. I'm not saying yes or no, but this is a 80 to 100 years of life that you have. And in that life, if you decide to torture you, suffer, and not experience joy, it's your choice. Because you decided to tolerate normalcy or poverty. And you came up with a story for it. Let me give you the funeral example that I was talking about. The husband died. The wife is crying. And you go to the funeral, the wife is crying. And you started crying really worse than the wife. I mean, you are like crying, you're so sad, you're crying worse than the wife. I mean, you're crying so loud, you're so much more sad. What is the wife going to say? Especially if you're a woman. Right? And the husband died, and you go to their house and you're like crying so much, and you're so sad, and you're like in the floor. The wife is sitting down and crying. You're laying on the floor and crying. What would the wife say? Okay, what else would she say? Okay, she was reduced. She's like, what's wrong with this? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Do you think it's going to take away her sadness? She's confused now. So human experience is a crying competition. Just because there is poverty in the world, we are like, okay, let me suffer too, so I could be poor. So the wife doesn't need to cry anymore. And we are competing to suffer if you're embracing poverty. We are saying, I'll stay poor, so I don't feel guilty. And we'll talk about why we are feeling that and why we are competing to stay poor. Because we feel guilty to be rich. We feel guilty. Oh my gosh, I'm one of those assholes now. Oh my goodness. That will be good. That will not be good. Am I enough to be wealthy? Am I enough? I mean, if the world is suffering, how could I, if the woman is crying because of her husband? I mean, how many of you have seen that when people go to funerals, and I have seen this in India, maybe this is not happening in the US. You go to funerals and you're like really sad and you're like very serious. And then when you come out, you joke about stuff, and you tell all kind of crazy stuff. All of a sudden you have a different personality. How many of you experienced that? Raise your hand. Like something like that. I can see one person here. So, truth. And so, in other words, there is an element of hypocrisy for us humans. I'm not saying you, I have a little bit of hypocrisy because we pretend to suffer. Really, we are suffering is for some other reason. I'll talk about that too. But if you look at that, you could see that people have shame around money. Oh, do I deserve this? Do I deserve to have money? Let me fix me first. It's like seriously wrong with me. I'm into the spiritual path to fix me. Once I fix, then, oh my gosh, I'm going to be making money, or I'm going to be helping people. I'm going to change the world. But we have only 80 years. And probably 40, 50 years is gone already, or 100 years. And several years are gone already. And half of it is you're sleeping and spending time with people. And like you want to hire people. You're like, I cannot hire people. Oh my gosh. How could I be an employer? I don't know how to hire people. I don't know how to manage people. Or the opposite side, you have envy. You might have envy. I used to have envy. I used to hate rich people. I thought rich people, oh, they're horrible people. How could you make profit? I didn't even understand the concept of profit when I was like 20 years old. Like, you buy something for something and you put more money and sell the same thing. Why can't you give it for the same money? That's what Bible said. That's what I thought the Bible said. Why are all these Christians, business people? Oh my gosh, I envy them. Those rich, whatever thing that you want to fill. So, let's be honest. You're not judging these people. You're judging you, a part of you. If you are judging the rich people, they don't exist. It's only you here. You're here. And stop judging that part of you who want to be an abundant child. Stop parenting yourself to poverty. Stop it. Appreciate that part of you. And maybe this rich guy who has so much money, use him as a tool. Use her as a tool to find that freedom to appreciate that child who want to be abundant. That child who has the dream, the child who has a dream to buy an aeroplane. Oh, I want to buy a plane. You know what? I'll buy 2 planes, one for you, one for me. And I want to buy a house too. 1 house for me, 1 house for you. You know what? I want to be the prime minister too. And then I want to be an astronaut. And at night, I'll be a neurosurgeon. That child was shut down way too many times. Way too many times. And we thought, you know what? My parents have been doing this for a long time. Shutting down that child, that abundant child. I take on this role now. I don't want them to do it anymore. I'll do it full time. What's my full-time job? Is diminishing myself and making sure that I stay small. You staying small is a sin. Okay. You being yourself is the best gift that you could give to your Creator. So, you don't need to self-parent you to poverty. And if you stop self-parenting you to poverty, what you could do is you could get another person to be free from poverty. And you could literally help like several kids, next generation, to be free from poverty. And through your life, even if you made one person out of poverty and help them move to abundance, you're changing the world. Not because of the whatever stupid thing called money. We don't even know what money is. Like some piece of paper with dead people. Not because of that, but because of the abundance of the Creator, abundance of everything and anything that we want, and living a fulfilled life. Please don't deny that to yourself. Unless you really want to, then you could do it. We have 1.75 billion thoughts. We just think. We just live. We have around 50, 60,000 thoughts. Over 8 years, we have 1.5 billion thoughts. We are being thought for by Dan and Emily's work, ancestors, philosophers, Aristotle and Plato, Christ, Krishna, Buddha, Nabi, Nietzsche, 20 people, and then few of your family, the culture, the Indians, the Hindus, the Christians, the atheist, the theist. We have been thought for. We never think. If you want to write it down, we have been thought for. We never think. Somebody else said, this is how you're supposed to think. And that could be CNN or Fox News or MSNBC or Breitbart or somebody too. But we don't think. We are being thought for. And that's why when you hear something new, the automatic reaction is, it doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't resonate with me. Oh, it doesn't match my worldview. It doesn't match my worldview. Because it's not your worldview. It's somebody else designed this worldview for you. It's a designing from the collective mind. I'm not blaming the collective mind. It was supposed to be like this. But at some time, you need to decide, not just for me, but for you, empty your cup. That's what Socrates was able to do. I know that I know nothing. So my point is, I'm going to affirm this. I'm a different individual. Hopefully you could sense that. Basically, humans have human mind based on our work. We mapped it to 7 layers. Who you are and who you are not. The stories that shape you, the stories that limit you. The beliefs that expand you, the beliefs that you pull you back. The values that pull you forward, the values that pull you backward. The spiritual needs and the psychological needs. The habits that pull you forward, the habits that limit you and keep you as a human habit. The implementation, the things that you implement, and the things that you destruct yourself. So, if you want to move to the next level, be that child again. I cannot do that for you. You have to do it. You should be willing to expand your cup. Empty your cup and expand your cup, because you can hold more coffee, more water, or more amrit, which is in Hinduism, you might be familiar with that word. That is the highest level, like the most tasty and most delicious and most nutritious food ever. Expanding your cup. And if you're not able to expand your cup, then whatever you say, it's just talk. You just talk and talk and talk. And you say you will change the world. Probably you will not. But now you will be like, oh my gosh, everybody has to take action. No, there are so many mistakes, so many people in the world who did not do nothing. They just sat on the side of a mountain or under a tree and changed the world. But they also expanded their cup. They also did that. They also went out of their conditioned mind without judging it. Yeah. So, and I'm moving on to the next step, and I'll show you exactly how to handle it in a few seconds. So, because embarrassment is a much better feeling than shame.
Yes, it's lighter. It's not as painful.
So most people will say, oh my gosh, you're feeling embarrassed. Let's not go there. I say, let's go there. Because you are feeling shame that, oh my gosh, if I become so successful, I'm going to be a bad, horrible person who don't call their friends and will cancel the thing and buy all the jewelry and wear all those things and waste a lot of money. Oh my goodness, I can't believe this. Versus now you're embarrassed. Great job being embarrassed. This is a fascinating thing about the thing. It's not because you're a really good person that you don't make money. It's because you're afraid that you're going to be a bad person. So it's about you not feeling enough, and you feel shame about that part of you who want to expand, and you are shaming that person into submission and keeping that person in poverty and scarcity. That's how you stay poor. It's not because of your spiritual values. Fair?
Yes, fair. Yes.
But that's changing now. This moment it's changing, because you went from shame to embarrassment, and embarrassment, we celebrated the embarrassment. So the way you are holding on to the perceived scarcity, poor self, is by being loyal to them through shame, guilt, and envy. And if you're willing to look at your shame, shame disappears, becomes embarrassment. In your case, for somebody else, it could be something else. And when you look at embarrassment with love, embarrassment will disappear. So now you could observe yourself to joy. You could come back to joy. Imagine 75,000 years ago, your great dad, and not just Christina, each of you, built a beautiful mansion. It's unbreakable, amazing mansion. That's like worth $100 million. So good, so beautiful. It's next to the ocean with green water coming in, and it's green trees around. And you know that you own that. But you're living in a poor hut. You don't have enough money. You don't have enough resources. You don't have enough food. You live in poverty in every dimension. And you want to go to that place, but you're like, I don't know whether my dad, my cousins, or somebody will accept me. But you're staying here. You're like, this is very comfortable. I can stay poor. The mansion that was built 75,000 years ago, whoever guesses that, what that is, I'm going to spend 30 minutes with you. Put that in the chat. You have that mansion. Okay, so here's the answer. That mansion is your prefrontal cortex. It's a front area of your brain, which developed 75,000 years ago. And you have access to abundance there. And you're like, oh my gosh, those rich people, those bad people, they make money. I'm such a pure person, pure soul. I don't have money for food. But isn't that the idea? Like Indian people, I mean, we kind of screwed up this thing. I mean, it's my granddad who's responsible for this. Okay. My cousins and my granddads, they told you that you should stay in poverty. We stay in poverty, that's very spiritual. We should be free. Everything we see is Maya anyway. We might as well stay in poverty. So here's the thing. It's time to transcend. I'll show you exactly how to do this. Time to transcend and integrate shame. We don't fight shame. We don't fight guilt. We don't fight envy. We transcend and integrate shame, guilt, and envy. Here is the truth. For those who have emptied their cup, spiritual people have more shame around money than sex. Because generally sex is with only a few number of people or one person, right? So we don't need to have scarcity around that. Or we don't need to have shame around that because it's allowed. It's for reproduction. But money, oh my gosh, I can't have more money. So write down right now, what do you believe about my business? Put that in the chat. Okay, so what we are going to do is, same thing with marketing and sales. For example, I haven't gotten to the third one. So I would like you to write down, bring in all the shame. Bring your shame, bring your envy, bring your guilt about business, marketing, and sales. And I'm going to re-gift that for you in a different way. And we'll do that together. So bring your belief about money. I don't even need to read it. And if I didn't read it, don't worry about it. I don't need to read it. If I read it, it's good. So money, sales, business. What are your shame, your guilt, or your envy about these things? And and start writing it. And you might get confused energetically a little bit. That's fine. When you're writing, shame is one thing. Okay? You understand shame. If you understand shame, raise your hand. Do you understand shame about shame? Do you understand what I mean by that? Do you understand shame about guilt? Do you understand what I mean by that? Do you understand shame about envy and guilt about that shame? Okay. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? I mean, advanced people. Okay. So can you decide today you will be single dimensional shame people, single dimensional guilt people, and single dimensional envy people starting today? Do you understand what I mean by that? And if you don't get it, it's okay. Your subconscious probably got it. But if you feel shame about guilt, or guilt about shame, or guilt about envy, or shame about guilt, could you stop doing that for today? Like from now? Could you just like honestly, genuinely feel guilt and stay guilty, stay feeling guilty? And if you're feeling shame, could you just feel shame instead of feeling shame about shame, or guilt about shame, or shame about being envious? A snake bites somebody. Okay. The venom is in the body. The venom is in the body. They call 911. Somebody's coming in 15 minutes. Person is like, how dare the snake do this to me? Like, how dare? I mean, I'm a human after all. I'm a human, conscious person with such a giant brain and a prefrontal cortex and everything. How could a snake do this to me? And the person starts running behind the snake. Or let's say a human. Who's a crazy human? And that person is going behind the snake, chasing the snake. What happens in their body? I can give you a guess. The poison is spreading in the body.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Because the poison is spreading through the blood, right? So it's spreading through the body. Does that make sense? Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay. So same way, when you're fighting shame, when you're fighting guilt, when you're fighting envy, it's spreading. It's becoming bigger.
Okay.
So how do you fight shame? By being guilty about shame. Does that make sense? How do you fight a snake? You're running behind it. How do you fight shame? You feel guilty. Oh my gosh, I feel shame. I'm a spiritual person. I'm not supposed to feel shame. Oh my goodness. Make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. So could you become a single dimensional shame, guilt, envy person starting today? Are you open to that idea? You don't need to. I'm just giving you a choice. Yeah, single dimensional shame, guilt, and envy person starting today. If you don't understand, you understood in a deeper level. If you emptied your cup, you understood in a deeper level. So let's do this.
Can I just add something quick?
Sure, go for it.
When you do this one shift, like you agree, you're not going to have shame about shame. In the systemic field, we get to bring forward shame. And when we bring forward shame, we bring forward the ancestor who's connected to it. So there's a lot of movement and alchemy that occurs when we stop hiding having shame or guilt about guilt or shame about shame or whatever. Anyways, and sometimes there's two ancestors, the one that is shame about it and the one that's connected to it. So just naming that. Thank you, Ruble. This is great.
Beautiful, beautiful. So let's look at the shame, guilt, and envy you're feeling about business, sales, and money. And look at that shame. First of all, you look at that shame and like, okay. I mean, you decided not to feel shame about it anymore. We decided that, right? And we decided not to feel guilt about it anymore. So we decided that. We decided not to feel, there's no envy about feeling shame, right? So which means that you feel like kind of something happened, it froze. Like, what do I do now? Okay, that's where That's where you would look at it and say, oh my gosh, shame, thank you so much. So who can look at shame and say, I'm grateful to you? You are trying to make a Christmas card for the grandpa. And you wrapped the package with green color because you didn't know what grandpa's color was. Then the grandma told you, oh, Papa likes the red color wrapping for Christmas gift. So what can you do? It's a very difficult situation. What do you do? Put that in the chat. Very technical question. So you wrapped the Christmas gift for grandpa in green. Grandma told you grandpa likes red color. What do you do? Very technical question. This is the answer. This is how we are going to decide whether you're going to pass today's test. Okay. What do you do? Change the paper. Add a red bow. Or just take out the wrap, take out the green wrap and change it with red. It's that easy. Feel that for a second. What does this mean? The shame, the guilt, and envy are the gifts. Until today, probably you are wrapping it with green. Probably with another shame, another guilt, or another envy. You're fighting it probably. Today, if you're willing to wrap, and again, I'm not selling you on this, it's your choice. If you want to, if you are committed, if this interests you, this is your choice, you can choose to wrap it with gratitude. Wrap it with joy. And then the magic happens. The magic when shame becomes joy. Shame becomes love. Guilt becomes peace. Envy becomes love. Envy becomes joy. Who wants to do it? Put that in the chat. Completely your choice. I haven't told my cousins that I will transform anybody today. Or get you enlightened today. Like I said, we have more time. What happens then? You become free. There's no fight anymore. You don't hate anybody. You don't feel like those business people anymore. Because when you are hating, disliking, judging those people, you're not judging them. You're just judging you all this time. You can stop judging you for your shame, for your guilt, and for your envy. All right, let's do it. You want to do it? Raise your hand if you want to do it. Yeah? Okay. So look at the business. Again, it's a mass intervention. We are doing it together. So look at the shame you have about business. And you don't need to do no business. Like I said, that's your decision. Look at your shame and guilt and envy about business, about sales, about money. Whether you want to do business or not. Look at that. And be grateful to it. Wrap it with a red gratitude paper. Wrap it now. And allow the alchemy to transform, gradually transform that into gratitude. Look at the shame, guilt, and envy that you feel about business, sales, or money. Wrap it with love. Put the red love paper. Just love shame. Just love gratitude. Just love your jealousy, envy. This is what probably Jesus meant when he said, love your enemy. Because this is the only enemy. Shame is not the enemy. Conditioning, the enemy. Because you're biased as a human doing, as a human habit, as a human memory, you're biased towards shame, to judge shame, to fight guilt, to fight envy. So, God forbid we become a bad person. God forbid we become rich or free from mind. Take your shame, guilt, and envy. Wrap it with faith. Wrap it with faith. A trust. Everything is going to be okay. Wrap it with joy. Take your shame. Probably close your eyes for this process. Take your shame, your guilt and envy about business, about sales, about money, and put the wrap. Grandpa likes the joy red wrap. Those are different designs of reds. Wrap it with the joy and allow the shame, guilt, and envy transform into joy. Take your shame, guilt, and envy about business, sales, and money. Wrap it with kindness. I deserve a little bit more kindness. And if shame is part of me, if guilt is part of me, it's a biochemical reaction of my action. If envy is a biochemical reaction of my neurological influence, neurological blueprint through intergeneration of same generation or whatever, do I deserve to be kind to me? So wrap it with kindness. If you feel like crying, cry. If you feel like laughing, laugh. If you feel like screaming, mute yourself and scream. Okay, so everybody, imagine, like when I ask you to imagine there is a snowball in your hand, in your palm, okay? And then your hand is the wrapper now. So your hand has this heat. So when I ask you to apply this heat, you apply this heat, and then you're gonna allow the snow to melt away, okay? So take the snowball, okay? Take the snowball. This is shame, guilt, and envy, justice, anything that you're wrapping that with. Take the whole package and then put both hands and then apply the heat of faith. So when that heat is coming, it's melting and it's dropping like water. The snowball is dropping into water, in the floor, in the ground. Apply the heat of joy, okay, and touch around the snowball. Apply the heat of joy. Apply the heat of gratitude. And it's becoming smaller and smaller, and it's becoming kind of warm, and then water is dripping, it's becoming smaller. Then you apply the heat of mercy, the mercy that you give to shame, guilt, and envy. So apply the heat of mercy. Apply the heat of consciousness. Apply the heat of consciousness. You're being conscious. You look at this thing and you're like, okay, let me put a little bit more heat from my palm into this. And apply the heat of kindness. And you're being kind to guilt, shame, and envy.
This is my favorite experience I've ever had of transmuting shame, guilt, envy in relationship to business, and also all the other values that, this is his introduction. I just want to say this is Ruble's intro. So the diagram he showed you is how he works with you in all these different belief systems, the different orientations, in addition to the how. So Ruble, I'm just really grateful that you changed your plan and decided to do what you're doing today. I'm thrilled, deeply touched by the stories you shared and the way you touched our group today. And I'm forever grateful for this time with you.
All right. Thank you so much, Emily. Dan, God bless you guys.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye, Ruble.
Bye, Ruble.